Truly, sometimes, I believe I am no longer sure of anything. An example would be today. I was sitting outside my institution when a leaf blew into my hair. A real leaf. From a real tree outside our yard. I reached up a hand and crushed it. As one does. But when I looked at the leaf, I had a feeling. I thought about how I had crushed that leaf for no reason, without even thinking. Out of habit. I thought about how this is what I do. Touch things and ruin them without even trying. I thought about how I'm a con girl now, a confirmed negative member of society who has to be put in this place apart from everyone because she is such harm to others. All this because of a leaf which was already dead. I think the place to begin is my end of semester meeting with my assigned learning process advisor, Mr. Borain. Now, the thing I must stress is that I believe Mr. Borain is a good person. I've never once doubted that he wanted the best for me and my life processes. And he has 2 little girls at home for whom he cares very tenderly. I arrived at his office punctually, and the first thing Mr. Borain said was, "Hi, Sophie. I hope you're doing okay." At which point, I almost started crying because, as Mr. Borain knew, I was not doing okay, and there was absolutely nothing I could do to make anything better. At least, not in time to make a difference. But it was nice of him to say that. Numerous studies over the past decade have proven that social media use is directly linked to mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and even PTSD. An October 2022 article from Discover magazine shows that in addition to these mental health concerns, social media is affecting how we engage with one another in the real world. And this, along with the fear of missing out, is perpetuating an endless cycle of addiction, trauma, and comparison. As we continue to use these platforms, one starts to wonder how this will affect our society in the coming decades. Will we be strong enough to overcome it, or will we be forced to judge every aspect of a person based only on their social media profile? Con Girl by Nick Wolven. "Let's see what we have here," Mr. Borain said, flicking through his files. "Now, Sophie, I want you to know that everything that happens in this interview is entirely private and unrecorded. However, if you in any way violate the interpersonal campus conduct policy, that will have to be immediately reported. Now, let's get started." He brought up a chart that showed my grades, and a chart that showed my peer networks, and 100 other charts that showed 100 different things. But at the center of it all was my pro-con holistic score. Glowing on the walls, so awful, I could hardly look at it. "I've been looking over your records, Sophie, particularly at your pro-con holo score, and it seems like over the past few years we've started to see..." "I know. I'm in the yellow. I can explain." What follows is a quote from my family's child assistant rearing advisor, who prepared my first ever psychological profile. "Sophie has incredibly well-developed facial sensitivities. Her reading of facial expressions is advanced for her age, and her various empathetic reactions are off the charts." I've always endeavored to use my facial reading talents, such as they may be, for the constructive support of others. In my 14th year, when my mother decided that my father was no longer fulfilling her needs as a life partner, I did everything I could to explain how I loved them both and supported them, which I posted every day on my PRO-MAFL profile. And it was during this admittedly trying time that I realized that my efforts did not go unacknowledged, because partway through my senior year, my teacher, Miss Ebro, requested a private meeting with me. She told me how she and the other teachers had been observing what was occurring with me, how they had been following the posts my mother had been making on her rant space page about my father and the divorce, and she said that she and the other teachers had been observing my response to these developments, and They appreciated my maturity. And she said that she and the other teachers would be factoring this into my holistic score for the semester, in conjunction with my scholastic grades. After that, my pro-con holo score went very green. I used to pull up the covers at night and turn on my palm screen and sit there in kind of a glowing green cave and think about all the positive opinions that had gone into that score. How all of this information was presented to me in such a simple green light, of all the positive feelings that I had brought into the world. Mr. Borain tapped his own palm screen to display some different records, which I didn't recognize. These are the private and public parties who have agreed to invest in your education. They have agreed to contribute to the financing of your education, Sophie, because your holo score positioned you, at the time, as an immensely high potential individual. They'll be evaluating you soon for employment opportunities. But, Sophie, what do you think these people will say when they learn that one of our top empathetic performers is, as it seems, deeply biased? Mr. Brain, I can explain. And what he explained was how, when I'm in the scanning machines, engaging with all the powerful issues that I'm experiencing in these stories, sometimes I start to worry that I might have a problematic response, and at times I get so worried that I make myself have the response, but only for the sake of understanding the response as part of my ever-vigilant efforts not to have the response. So the real-time empathetic assessment machines, as I told Mr. Borain, are probably only picking up against my constant mental vigilance against such responses, and my earnest and engaged grappling at the possibility of such responses. If that makes sense. My job, Sophie, is to prepare you for your final review. What's valuable today is the ability to read human beings. That is what recruiters want. Now, what message do you think it will send if I let you meet with those recruiters, a graduating student of this college, and tell them that after several years of top-tier education and $3 million, well, what do you think they'll say when they learn that you're prone to empathizing with the wrong kinds of people? Sophie, I'm afraid that I cannot approve you for graduation at this time. I was feeling many feelings, but mostly I just thought about Mr. Borain, how in that one video on his PRO-MAFL profile, when one of his little girls got scared by the ducks, and it was like Mr. Borain didn't even need to think, he just kept smiling and throwing bread to the ducks, and in his arms, he held her to him. And the next thing I knew, alarms were blaring and Mr. Borain was jumping away and pounding on his palm screen, and I saw how, without even looking at it, I had gotten up out of my chair and pressed my face to his chest. I need to report a violation of the Intercampus Conduct Policy, Section 25B. Note, non-sexual content was initiated by the student. I am now disengaged and am departing the location. And then, just as he left, he tapped his palm screen. And the last thing I remember was looking down at my own palm screen and seeing the effect of the assessment that he had given me, which was my own palm score, glowing a deep, ugly red. It feels strange to be in a home for con women. Everyone here is so deep in the red, a confirmed negative influence to society. Nobody can understand why I'm in this place. To be honest, I don't understand either. I used to be at the top of the pro readings, attended a prestigious university. What I want now is for my narrative to be a help to others and to aid them in avoiding the pitfalls that I have taken. There are times, though, when I feel like I will never understand and will always be too deep in the red. No good to anyone.